The empire strikes back. Ottoman Empire, that is. As Russia scuttles from Syria and Iranian proxies are being dealt a crippling blow, Turkey is left. But with what? Has Turkey inherited its old empire by default? Join me, Jan Darasz, for How We Got Here.
Pulling in front of Erdogan's splendourous presidential palace on Tuesday was a Mercedes Maybach S-Class. From its sumptuous cabin emerged Syria's interim president, Ahmed el-Sharaa, sporting a suit and crisp white shirt, so different from his once battle-worn rebel leader uniform. He proceeded to shake the hand of his powerful protector. The Turkish president had the Syrian leader for discussion. Churning the fate of Syria in Ankara instead of Damascus speaks volumes about with whom the future of the country rests. El-Sharaa makes no secret of it.
We value the efforts of His Excellency President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his pursuit of a successful transitional period that brings back security and stability to the entire region. And I'm honored to invite His Excellency President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to visit Syria at the earliest opportunity.
One may wonder if that invitation was extended to the Turkish forces. Well, for one, the gentlemen know at whom their men will be pointing their guns.
I expressed to him that we are ready to provide the necessary support to Syria in the fight against all forms of terrorism, whether it is the Kurdistan Workers' Party or the Islamic State.
We also discussed the importance of international pressure on Israel for it to withdraw from the buffer zone in southern Syria in accordance with the 1974 agreement.
All things considered, a beginning of a great Turkish-Syrian friendship, and a permanent one too.
I see today's historic visit as the beginning of a period of permanent friendship.
Having supported other opposition factions in Syria and unofficially collaborated with Islamist rebel group of Hayat Tahrir ash-Sham, Erdogan's relations with al-Sharaa have become closer. For instance, the Turkish military kept watch over the Idlib enclave where Sharaa established his HQ, while Turkey sheltered hosts of Syrians fleeing the fray. Now, with Turkey jostling about in Syria, it seems the country has taken over in Russia's former province. But what of the Russian military airbase in Khmeim and the naval base in Tartus? For the Syrian leadership's defense minister, Muhaf Abu Qasar, the Russians could keep their bases, as long as the deal served Damascus's interests.
I'm delighted to be joined today by Adam Michalski, the Senior Fellow at the Department for Turkey, Caucasus and Central Asia at the Centre for Eastern Studies. Welcome once more to the programme.
Pleasure to be here.
The two presidents, new president of Syria, president of Turkey, met recently. And what's the relationship between those two? Has Turkey got a new client state, a new province in its empire? Well, you mentioned that President Erdogan has these Ottoman ambitions.
I think that if somebody was to frame it, Syria as a province, this would be insulting not only to Turkey's side, but especially for the Syrian side. I mean, no, we're looking at a radical change where we have a independent Syria, a Syria that is being governed right now by the new transitional government, a government that for the first time since I think the outbreak of the Syrian civil war is one that looks forward to cooperation with Ankara and also other partners in the region. And this is a radical shift for Turkey. Turkey considers Syria to be right now a strategic partner, a partner with which they hope that sometime in the very, very near future, not only will they be able to increase economic and political cooperation, but particularly military cooperation, which for both, I think, Damascus and Ankara is a priority. And I'm hinting here to the old-age question of the terrorists, of the PKK, which is a Kurdish terrorist organization, Kurdish one, which operates in northern Syria and that has been using northern Syria as a base to launch attacks not only inside Syria, but also against Turkey. And so this under Assad could not be solved because also of the intervention of Russian forces in this area, but also of a presence, due to the presence of the United States, which actually is still there. So this complicates. But I mean, both Ankara and Damascus right now see a new opening and a chance to solve all of their political, economic and military security questions on the table.
So the exit of Russia from the region, the weakening of the Iranian Hezbollah link through Syria, and you say that this renewed strategic partnership, that spells doom for the Kurds and their ambitions.
Well, perhaps not immediately, because as I've mentioned, not only was there Russia and Iran present in Syria, we still have US presence over there, which is about 1,000 troops on the ground in that region controlled by the Kurds, which Turkey considers to be terrorists, but for the United States, they're partners in fighting the Islamic State. And so this is why the United States is still there. Of course, we have a new president in Washington who probably will be very keen on discussing any kind of future plans with regards to withdrawing American troops from Syria. And this is, as I've said, I mean, this is a historic opportunity for Turkey, because not only has the government in Damascus changed, there's also a new president in Washington who'd probably be more willing to talk with Ankara on how the United States could withdraw and how perhaps Turkey could take on some of this kind of security role within this region. Not only fighting the PKK, which for Ankara is one topic, but also, for example, creating a coalition of states like, Iraq, Jordan, Syria to fight the Islamic State, which for the United States would be a very positive development, in the sense that you would have a NATO ally coordinating tasks to control the Islamic State without having to have American troops and American forces on the ground over there. So I think that there is a very interesting dynamic that we will be seeing in the next couple of months between Ankara and Washington, also when it comes to the discussions of how to solve the Kurdish autonomy question, and particularly the Kurdish terrorism PKK question.
The President Shara went dressed in a Western suit, a sign of respect for President Erdogan. Can it ever be given Syria's experience in the civil war, the appalling devastation it has experienced, its economy is devastated. Is it going to be possible for these two countries to have a relationship of equals, or is it going to be just that Turkey is going to have a client state on its border doing its bidding?
There will be definitely a difference, right? I mean, it lays in plain sight that, I mean, Syria is torn after all these years of civil war, politically, economically. Well, maybe not so much politically, it's united, but economically, specifically, particularly when it comes to infrastructure, the cities which have been bombarded by the Assad regime. All of that needs to be restored, and Turkey will be one of the first states to
Turkey,
play.
for example.
Exactly, Turkey will be the first country to of course, want to rebuild Syria, not just for the benefit of Syria, but for the benefit of mutual relations. Let's keep in mind that Turkey hosts about 3 million Syrian refugees. These refugees are, well, they're not there to stay for eternity. Some of them would want to leave, but in order for them to leave, they need to have some type of a stable Syria, one that's economically stable, one that has housing, social support. And so it's in the interest of both countries to really kind of try to bring Syria up back from where it is right now, economically, politically, militarily, give it some type of a true state kind of characteristic in terms of bureaucracy, one that functions in a democratic way, in an inclusive way, so that everybody in Syria can feel inclusive. And this is one of the ways how this mosaic of different minorities in Syria can coexist. And for Ankara, this is an absolute priority. However, I'd add very quickly that Turkey is not the only player when it comes to Syria. I mean, we still have to take into consideration that any effort to rebuild Syria requires loads of money. And this is something that Turkey does not have at its disposal because of financial crisis that's been going on and other priorities. So a very big kind of donor of this funds will most probably be the Gulf states in the Middle East.
The president of Syria went over to Saudi Arabia.
Precisely. And so we should also expect some form of a division of task. I mean, somebody will have to put down the money, somebody will have to rebuild Syria in terms of, providing the companies that are going to do it, which means that Syria is going to be, I think, potentially an area of cooperation for many states, but we should also be wary that it can also turn to an area of rivalry, of geostrategic rivalry between Turkey and perhaps the GCC.
But it seems to be as you say, a test bed for cooperation within the Islamic world to rebuild one of its own constituents, rather than an international US-led coalition of the willing.
Yeah, and I mean, I think from the experience of the Middle East when it comes to, the meddling from the United States, in Iraq and all these other wars that have been taking place over there for the last couple of decades, Syria is definitely one of those places where I think the Middle East would want to keep it to itself when it comes to, investments, rebuilding. But that doesn't mean that they still wouldn't want support from the European Union. I mean, when I say support, I'm gently saying cash, right? So this is what's really needed in Syria right now. But no, I mean, I think Turkey wants to be playing here the main key role as the actor that not only stabilizes and legitimizes the government in Syria, but also as one of the bigger actors in terms of investment, in terms of investing into Syrian infrastructure, into Syrian housing. Turkish companies are known and renowned around the world to being very kind of prone to do these things and being always willing.
We can do a better job than the EU can.
Well, they have actually the means on the ground. So even if the EU was to rebuild, they have to find somebody to do that job. And it's not going to be European companies. It's most probably always going to be Turkish companies or local companies which just need the cash incentive or the cash investments in order to start doing this. So I think that Turkey, regardless of who is the donor, who is giving the money, I think that the Turkish business, and particularly the construction side, will be one of the biggest beneficiaries.
We talked about that when the civil war ended in our previous discussion. We talked about the dust settling in Syria. Is it the delegation came out in Western-style suits? It seemed optimistic. Is this mood still continuing in Syria, or is it still a very fragile kind of post-war situation?
Well, at this moment, we at least have a president of the current government, which is a transition government, so that has been a new development since then. I still think that there is a lot of euphoria surrounding what's happened in Syria. I mean, we're only talking here about barely 2 months since the toppling of Assad has happened, so I think this kind of post-victory glue is still holding the society together, and everybody wants to work towards a Syria that's going to be prosperous and welcoming to all the Syrian minorities. And I think that this is the main kind of idea behind what's going on right now. So we haven't seen still bigger conflicts taking place inside Damascus, which could signal to us that perhaps this coalition that Shara has built, the current president of Syria, is fragile. I think that right now we see rather a positive movement towards the consolidation of power, towards the reforming of state institutions in Syria, particularly the military, which is where Turkey hopes also to have a very deep relationship with the Syrian military, because that's, as I said, that's going to be crucial for stabilizing Syria and solving military problems. But no, I mean, I think that that whatever we've been discussing last month in terms of the big questions, whether this is going to hold, whether the new government is going to be able to deliver on some of its tasks, I think it's at the same time too early to still say. But from what we know right now, I think that Syria is moving in the correct direction, and some of the signals, for example, that we've been receiving from the Western states, particularly the EU, in terms of lifting the sanctions, kind of speaks to that. I think more and more states are realizing that, well, things are going in the right direction, so maybe we should cooperate more with Syria.
A final question as we draw to a close. How do you see the political landscape, the political topography changing? Syria, always been a strong country, strong power player. How do you see Turkey coming in with Syria? How do you see that developing and influencing the region as a whole?
I mean, Syria, if we go back to the Arab Spring uprisings, where Turkey has back then invested a lot into, supporting the uprisings in Egypt and across other Middle Eastern states, all of these uprisings have failed, except for Syria right now, which is, I think, this kind of big win for Ankara, that all those years of, saying that, Assad should go has finally paid off. And
has this been a surprise for Ankara?
Exactly. And so this for Ankara is a historic opportunity to position itself as this key player, saying, look, Syria was our investment. We stood by them. We're also willing to cooperate with any partner in the Middle East who's willing to help out Syria. And that's for the benefit of everybody, even for the autocratic regimes, in the Middle East, like the GCC. see with a more kind of vertical structure. Ankara is here to show, look, we're not here to make any type of revolutions, right? We want to stabilize. We just need the money investment, and I think it will be in everybody's interest to have a Syria that will be pro-Arab, pro-Turkish, without the Iranian influences, which of course the whole region wants to get rid of, or at least most players in the region want to get rid of.
Adam Michalski, thank you very much once more for coming on to the programme and talking to us. Great to have you. That's it. Join us next time, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 2:15 CET. Join us then.